Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Tinnitist TV. Today I am talking to the one and only Fantastic Negrito, a man whose life story is every bit as incredible and every bit as colorful as his stage name. Born Xavier de Frepeles and raised in Oakland, he sold drugs as a teenager before teaching himself to play music by sneaking into college classes. Eventually, he signed a deal with Prince's ex-manager and made a major label album that unfortunately went nowhere. And then, in 1999, his life was changed forever when he was in a near-fatal car crash that left him in a coma for weeks and permanently disfigured his guitar-strumming hand. Finally, after years of running an illegal LA nightclub, he returned to music and promptly won NPR's first Tiny Desk contest. Since then, he's released a trio of acclaimed LPs, each of which has won the Grammy for Best Contemporary Blues Album. But with his latest album, De Frepeles is adding a whole new chapter to his remarkable tale. White Jesus, Black Problems was inspired by the courageous, real-life love between his seventh great-grandmother, a white indentured servant, and an unnamed black slave in Virginia. A 270-year-old tale of love conquering all, it's easily his most personal work to date, and his most ambitious. It comes accompanied by a full-length film that puts the entire tale in context. A few weeks ago, he kicked off several days of interviews by talking to me about crafting the record, ditching Sting to make this album, how he feels about winning another Grammy, and where his story goes from here. Enjoy. Fantastic Negrito.
Yes.
It is a pleasure to talk to you again. Thanks so much for taking the time today.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to talk to you. It is especially great to talk to you because this is such a great album. White Jesus, Black Problems. I mean, I think it's fair to say that this is simultaneously your most personal album and your most ambitious album. It's a record that is 270 years in the making.
Yeah. That sounds crazy, but yes. And definitely, you summed it up. I think it's definitely my most personal and my most ambitious. I felt a great deal of inspiration to tell this unique story of courage under the most impossible circumstances we could ever imagine. But somehow it feels right in the modern era.
It does. It does. For people who don't know the backstory, I mean, I could explain it, but I think it's better coming from the man himself. Can you just sort of give us the condensed version of where this all comes from?
Yes. Well, I made a discovery on my mother's maternal side that suddenly I saw these descendants of mine that were African Americans, and I could read their census, and it said free, registered free Negroes, and I was like, wow, it kind of blew my mind. They're from Virginia. This is the capital of the Confederacy, the aristocracy, if you will, of the Confederacy. And as I went back to the fourth, fifth, sixth generation, all free Negroes, then I got to the seventh generation, and there was just a woman. She happened to be an indentured servant from Scotland and happened to be my grandmother. And she had the brilliant idea of getting together and forming a forbidden love with an enslaved man, probably working in the fields. Who knows? Maybe he worked in the house. I don't know. But they, as the document said, had several mulatto children and got into trouble for it. And I thought it was a brilliant, remarkable story and kind of explained a lot about myself.
In what terms?
I think I just understood, I always felt a bit different from everything. And I was a kid growing up, living in West Oakland, listening to punk music and just being kind of irreverent and thumbing my nose to the establishment my entire life. And these rules are this kind of repressed fantasy of the rule givers. And I never wanted to adhere by those rules. And yeah, I felt different. Musically, I felt differently. I felt like, people were like, you're all over the place. I just didn't really know where to go,
Well, how soon after learning this did the idea of making it into an album come up, or did the songs just kind of start coming unbidden and instantly?
Well, it was like a speeding train, and I just stayed out of the way. I just got on the train, and it just took me to places I could have never imagined. I think it's the only album that I made that when I listen back to it, I go, wow, that's really different. Like, whoa, like what made me make that choice or what led me there? But I think I was just inspired and I let the music kind of do its own thing. And it much like my background, I think it wanted to go where it wanted to go.
Well, I can only conclude from that that you haven't listened to any of your other albums because they're all pretty amazing, fantastic,
Well,
as it were.
yeah, I think I know what I'm doing on those albums. I felt like this album, I didn't really it sound it it just felt different. Like I mean, sonically, just the opening Venomous Dogma, like a descending
Right.
scale that feels like it's kind of some psychedelic pop song, and then it turns into this crushing kind of Americana blues thing. Yeah, it's just so bizarre. To me, it's bizarre because I wrote that song in the same setting.
Hmm.
I remember just on the piano and then dun 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 dun. It 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 was a very man. It was the trip, man. It was a
I
trip.
understand that you wrote 50 songs
I don't know,
for this.
50, 70. I don't know. I couldn't keep. I wrote a lot of songs.
Is that typical for you? That kind of
No,
no.
not
So
at all.
just yeah.
It was just stuff was just happening as the I think the pandemic, and it was just so strange being locked down that I kept writing and I kept writing and I kept writing and I kept writing. And then I found this story and I was like, oh, I'm going to write about this story. So I think the album really started off as a duet with Sting.
What?
Yeah, to be honest with you. Yes,
How did that? What? Okay, back
I
up and
just,
start that.
I thought of an idea of an album of writing, I'd write a song and bring it to, one of my heroes I listened to when I was a kid. I listened to the Police.
Sure.
And that made me very weird in my neighborhood. So
I would imagine.
yeah, exactly. You listening to what, motherfucker? It's like, yeah. So sorry if I didn't mean to curse. You can bleep
That's
that.
okay. You curse all you want, my friend.
And then the pandemic happened. So I was thinking like, okay, we're gonna get like Sting, we're gonna get like Stevie Wonder. I mean, I was thinking of just Taj Mahal. I'm gonna get like all of these different people and put them all on one. George Clinton, maybe, Buddy Guy. Like I had this idea of like doing this duets with all these people that I really dug as a kid. But the pandemic happened and all communication got weird with everyone. So I didn't do anything for a year. I just retreated to my farm. I live on a beautiful farm. And then, I'm writing all these songs. They just keep coming. And then I run into this story about a year after the encounter with Sting. And that was, I just said, forget everything else, man. This is it. Like I'm feeling the inspiration of this is a true story of my lineage here. And wow, this is really an interesting story. And I think what I wanted was to tell the story of my grandparents, which is a story of love under machine gun fire. It's like love in facing the insurmountable odds. You're in this system that has these race laws and slavery, and somehow they, when everybody went to sleep, I guess, they
Well, I
made it
love that you
happen.
see it that way because it could easily be seen kind of the other way, as a tale of how they were not permitted to be together, and you
Well, they
finding the
weren't.
love and hope in it is great.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that makes it powerful. It's kind of like Romeo and Juliet. They weren't permitted to be together.
Except they lived.
Yeah, except for that, like I wonder like how, which made me write Highest Bidder. Like how did I thought that, you would hang someone for this, but I thought maybe I had to use my imagination. So this guy, Henry Jones, the name that I found, he must have thought, well, why would I hang this guy? He made some kids here. I can use these kids.
Yeah.
I just was trying to think all the time as I was riding that train. I'm like, yeah,
Right.
everything goes to the highest bidder. Yeah, it's just money, you guys. We're we're blinded by this. We look at like all your religion, your race, your philosophy. No, your money.
Right.
This is what this power structure that rules over us is interested in money. And I think that was a very interesting part of the story, because you could look at the idea of like enslavement. Like, what did this mean? Like, well, this meant money for people.
Mm.
Bottom line is it meant money. Of course, you could use race as a vehicle to get there, but I think we're obsessed with race. I mean, in America we are,
Mm.
and it doesn't go away. So I
No.
thought, wow, my grandparents were powerful, man. That's some punk rock shit. They were like, hey, let's hook up in the mid 1700s. Like, whoa, you're as white as you can be from Scotland, and you're as black as you can be from Africa, and I don't know. It was I
I
still
think if I
scratch
read it
my head.
right, that because technically because they couldn't obviously be together legally, that made their kids they were bound to her, right, which made them technically free. So
Yes.
they got free on a technicality that you would think that was a loophole they would have closed, you know?
I don't, you know what? I think that's the problem with white supremacy, is
Yeah.
that these guys who are making these laws, they couldn't imagine a white woman would make that
Right,
choice.
right,
They
yeah.
couldn't, because they sold their propaganda so well. Well, these are animals. Of course, we can sell them. They're not really human beings. Don't you guys get it? No, of course, poor white people, we can't give you a job picking cotton. No, we have
Right,
animals, because that's the trick. It's like, hey, we have these people that are subhuman,
right. 3/5
but
of the
yet,
person, right? Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
making all the money off of it,
Right.
and you have this huge population of very poor white people who could have picked cotton for you, and had some equity. So
Yeah.
I got to think about all that stuff, like all this. What's that noise? It's
Well,
not
at the
me.
very end of, you good? At,
No, it's like, I don't know what this
uh,
beeping is, but yeah, that's what I mean. I don't think, and another thing, I don't think people are really interested in these details, because people are interested in Will Smith slapping the shit out of Chris Rock,
right.
but they're not interested in the fact that people were enslaved and brought here to take the jobs of poor white people. Let that sink in, guys. Just
Yeah.
stop and let it sink in. And I think it just debunks the whole idea of race, and the whole idea of like, you know, white supremacy and slavery. Just like but I don't think people are interested in that. I don't know why, but
Well,
they're
because
not.
there's a million distractions and diversions, like you say. There's always some new thing to gossip about that takes people's mind off it, and never mind the actual important issues. I mean, I love the fact that this album ends with you talking about how one day freedom will come, and that's kind of that uplifting end to the album. I mean, sometimes it's got to be hard to believe that, though, when you look around at the truth of what's going on.
Well, I wasn't really telling my story on this record. I was telling their story. So
Mm.
I thought, to make the decisions that they made, which quite frankly seemed insane to me, you have to be you got to be believing in something strong, man. And I'm a pretty positive person, despite what anyone may say. I think I think it's a positive love story in the end, with a killer title. But I think it's dramatic, it's gregarious, it's bold, it's frightening. Well, that's what kind of love story this was, and that's
I
what
guess.
their story is. And I felt like I'm just telling their story. It has really nothing to do with me. I don't know how much I'm really saying. They said
Yeah.
it all.
Gotcha.
270 years ago, they made a very rare, courageous decision. I can't find stories like this. I Google and Google. I can't find them.
Yeah.
Where a white indentured servant freely chooses to find love and union and children with a black enslaved man.
I love that you made it into the companion film too. That really helps, you know, flesh out the story and kind of visualize it to go along with the album. Was that a plan from early on, or was that something that
No,
came along later?
it just, man, this whole thing, like I said, man, what a train ride. It just kept happening. I just like, well, I got this song, and wait, hey, it should be a film. Well, maybe not a film. I'll make a couple videos. Okay, you know, we didn't know how to make a film. We had one camera, one kid we met off Instagram. He's the Eric Neal. He's the director and the editor, and filmed it. We all kind of everybody did everything. The actors were just my band members, and my accountant is the angry white woman on "You Don't Belong Here." Oh, and she hated to do that part, but she was so good at it.
For her. Well,
And
so
she
now
loved
what? I
it.
mean, you could do a Broadway musical of this.
I think so.
You could do a book. You could do a dramatic movie. I mean,
You know, I really think that this thing, because I just love the message in it. The message is, you know, through the most impossible storm, love is possible. And in an era where I don't know what it feels like where you are, but here it feels like you get online every morning and it feels like we can't get anything done.
yeah.
We're so, you know, everyone's so entrenched in their dogma that I feel like we can't even get on first base anymore. You know, where if you're so far on the left and you're screaming, and if you don't believe with my ideology, then you're bad, or you're a bigot, or you're a racist, or you're a bad person. And if you're so far on the right that you're so entrenched in your dogma that you're embracing, you know, idealism, which is frankly dangerous. I'm like, man, how do we get out of this? You know, there's got to be a way out of this, and it doesn't seem like, you know, the political leaders just take advantage of this. But I feel like maybe through artistry, through artists, maybe we can tell these amazing stories. And I'm thinking, wow, what an amazing story of love and accomplishment under the most incredible odds. Like, you don't make that choice in the 1700s, but they did.
I know, amazing.
I'm here, and I'm their
Exactly.
weird ass, you know, grandson. I think there's no better person to do this.
And you're here every other summer too. The thing that I am always amazed by you and love is that you are dependable as clockwork with your albums. If it's the summer of an even numbered year, we are getting a new Fantastic Negrito album. Are you as regimented like that in all aspects of your life?
It's weird. I'm like regimented with a extreme liberalism about being regimented, but I do like every other year. I want to come up with something that it was supposed to be duets,
right?
But it ended up being this. So
somewhere Sting is still waiting for a phone call. You know that, right?
Yeah, no. I talk with his manager. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna come out. It just didn't. It wasn't telling the story of this album. This was a specific story. You know, he was great. I mean, he was great.
You think maybe there's a follow-up in this? A sequel?
I don't know. Black Jesus, white problems, you know?
There you go.
Yeah, I did an acoustic version of every song. So it's very trap drums and upright bass. I did that. So that's waiting. Yeah, definitely that's coming. You know, I like to do, the great thing about being a middle-aged artist, especially a new middle-aged artist, relatively, I kind of can do whatever I want. I don't think anyone cares that much, so I don't care.
And I'm guessing the Grammys kind of help too. I mean, you know, that must take some pressure off, right?
Well, the thing is, the Grammys, I've won these Grammys, but I think that really made me want to make an album that maybe doesn't get a Grammy now because maybe it's too far out. I'm just being honest. I'm like, you've already won 3, just keep pushing. I think that makes me go, wow, okay, you like that? Well, how about this? How far can we push?
Well, I don't know, man. I think you're up for. I think you're going to go 4 for 4.
One thing is I don't think about it. I'm not interested. If it happens, I'm grateful, and oh
Sure.
my God, I can't believe it. Let's have a.
Oh, and there he goes. Hey, you're back.
As I was saying, yeah, I don't like think of myself like I'm a Grammy winner. Other people say it. I don't. You won't find it on my social media. I don't like carry. I don't put the trophies up. I put them away. And
Really?
yeah, I like being this age because it's like 54, man. I never expected anything. I wasn't looking for it, and I really don't care what anyone thinks. And it's like creating like the wisdom of a grandfather with the freedom of a 17-year-old. It's very interesting. I think you can hear it sonically. I'm like, oh, I could try this. Why don't I take that? Oh, this over here. Wouldn't it be crazy to have an R&B kind of hook on They Go Low? I don't know, Venomous Dogma. Let me put this together. Contrast, like my grandparents. She's white from Scotland. He's black from Africa. Psychedelic, and it's so fun, man. It's like I ditched the B3 organ, and I was like, I think I was listening to a lot of Fela, and I'm like, oh man, I love this 1970s transistor organ because the story is light. It's not this heavy B3 I've been using. It's very light and playful.
Right. I'm
And
glad you also mentioned George Clinton earlier because when I listen to this, and a lot of your music actually, I hear a lot of those really early raw Parliament albums, like
yeah,
Osmium and that era of stuff
yeah,
where he's just kind of all over the place. And
right.
one song it's R&B and one song it's funk and then it's country. And that seems to me like a place where, you're also kind of coming from.
I think probably yes. I'm guilty of all of it. I think Clinton, Bowie, early. I think a lot of those guys early. I love their early work and early Prince and early Bowie and
Mhm.
early George Clinton. Yeah, I'm guilty of it all, man. I just want to love what I'm doing, and I've gotten so much out of this. I was just playing at the train station. I wasn't. I didn't, and so it makes it.
Speaking of playing, are you going to take this out on the road and kind of do it all as a piece or what?
Well, yes, I am taking it on the road. I have everyone can check fantasticnegrito.com. I have June in the US, I think up in Toronto as far as I'm going in Canada on this run. Then I have July in Europe. Then I have Asia and South America
Oh, wow.
in the fall. So it's yes, it's happening. And I think there'll be a lot of visuals at the show and maybe a little bit of drama that kind of narrate a little
Wow.
bit. I think this music needs it where they kind of narrate songs like I've done a little bit like a Virginia Soil, and I talk about how my grandfather's sneaking out of the slave quarters and grandma coming out and they're meeting somewhere. And yeah, it was just Oh Betty, all these songs are like you said, musical. I see this being a musical.
Exactly. The only thing is now, how are you going to top this?
Well, the thing is, I don't want to top anything. I just want to. I don't really want to. I don't know if I've topped. I don't know what I've done, and I think that's what's great. I just don't know. I'm in West Oakland. I don't care, and I think as long as I'm there, I'm safe. I think when I start thinking about it, then that'll be the
Right.
end of this. I think a pretty creative run that I'm on.
I'd say.
And yeah, it's just I just enjoy it. The pressure's on 20-year-olds. They got to feel the pressure. Do I have a
I
billion?
love it. You're
And,
having the last
I'm
laugh.
yeah, I'm chilling, man. I'm just like, it's fun, it's interesting, and it's inspirational. Then let's make it. And that's the bottom line. Will it go number one? I don't care. Is it a hit? I don't care. Will I gain followers? I don't care. And this is like, yes. I'm here to
That's the
contribute a
freedom.
story,
Yeah.
and I love the story, and thank God for my Scottish, African, European, Native
Yeah.
roots. I'm 70% African, I'm 28% European, and I'm 2% Native. I'm like, I would have never guessed that.
No. And I would be talking to nobody if they hadn't gotten together. So it's all for the
Exactly.
good, man.
It's
So
all
listen,
for
I know you have a bunch of people to talk to. I will let you go and just say thanks so much for this album. It is great, and I seriously think you're going to get another Grammy nomination.
Well, if I do, you'll be the first one I call, Daryl.
All right, you do that, and hopefully we'll see you somewhere down the road. And if not, I know I'll see you again in 2 summers from now, right?
Absolutely.
All right, sir. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.